Hello everyone. I'm here today with you because, like you, I have a problem. It's a serious problem. I was introduced to this stuff as a young kid, and I haven't been able to get it off my mind my entire life. I think about it when I get up in the morning. I think about it before I go to bed. I dream at night about it. It's hard to work. Sometimes I don't eat. I don't sleep. It consumes my life. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm a fanatic. I'm a fishing fanatic. And I think about fishing all the time. I've tried to stop, but it nags at me. Lakes, rivers, fish, salmon, trout, kokanee, steelhead, they're all calling for me. And I can't help myself. I'm weak. And so what do? I give in. I go fishing. Or I fix my gear. I tie leaders. I plan. Kind of like I'm doing now. There's always something fishy going on in your head. You are a fishing fanatic, because I'm a fishing fanatic. You're a fishing fanatic, and we are all fanatics here, aren't we? And there's nothing we can do about it. I actually should be on the river today. So what I'm going to do today is, since I am not fishing, I am thinking about fishing, and I am thinking about making improvements to some of my gear. And I hope that this may help you improve some of your gear as well. I am going to shrink wrap my handles. Now I got this stuff here, ordered it off of Amazon, and let's see here. It's this stuff here. I've ordered this a couple of different times, but what I've discovered is that this stuff here, the 28 millimeter, seems to be a pretty good all-around size. Now if you're doing some heavier rods like halibut rods, tuna rods, I found that the 35 millimeter works a little bit better. This stuff shrinks like crazy, so even the 40 millimeter stuff will shrink down, but it won't work that well in some areas. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So here we have 4 new Kokanee rods, and what we're going to do today is I've already done these 2, and I did them a different way. Now you could see the ends, how they're wrapped around. Now you have to make sure that you leave enough overhang on your cuts so when it shrinks, it actually wraps around to the rod. Okay? And the only difference I did with these 2 is I made one that is cut right at the end of the butt cap, and then I made another one that wraps around the end. I actually like both the methods. This one here particularly because, you know, you could set your rod down and it's not going to mess it up on the end. But what I've decided to do is I've decided to do one rod one way and the other rod the other way, so I have 2 pairs of rods done the same. So 2 will be with the end wrapped and 2 will be cut off at the butt cap. What I have for tools is I have a pair of scissors, razor knife, a nice surface to be able to cut on. I don't want to cut on my wife's table. Heat gun, and a square. So, let's get started. I forgot to add one more thing I need. Glasses. Okay, let's start by taking our plastic off these rods. Now you don't have to do this to new rods. If you like the cork on there, that's great. Just leave the cork on there. These are new rods, and so I'm just covering them because I think this stuff looks pretty cool. Here. I think this stuff looks pretty cool. This is one where I've cut it at the butt cap. Yeah, They're pretty nice, huh? It's actually way more comfortable than the cork. It gives you a better grip. It won't stain. So if you want to protect your cork handle, you just cover it with this shrink wrap. Okay, so let's see how much I have left. Now this is just a piece. This is a piece that is left from the last rods I did. And so what one roll is going to do 3 rods. So just so you know. And the roll is 28 millimeter. 28 millimeter, and it is 3.2 feet. They had to throw the 0.2 feet. They can't just make it 3 feet, right? Okay, so what we're going to do is we want to measure it first. Now, I usually go out beyond the top of the handle about 1/2 inch. Okay, hold on. Potential spam. It is never ending, I tell you. Never ending. Okay, so the way I do this is I don't measure it with a tape measure. It's easier for me. I think it's easier just to lay it out in the area that you want it and then make a mark and then cut it. So since I have this piece left, I don't want to waste it on this small piece because then it won't fit down here. So I'm just it's gonna leave about 3 inches of cut off. Maybe I can use it on some other rod. So here I'm going to lay it on here. So it's about 1/2 inch over the cork on the top. Lay it nice and flat. And then right here, I'll go on this side. 1/2 inch up the top, pulling it tight. And then this one, I'm gonna make it wrap completely around the end. So you want to leave at least 1/2 inch so the shrink wrap can wrap around the end of the rod. So that mark right there. Okay, so you want to make sure, especially it's not so important in this area here, but it's important on the end, and it's important on these 2 parts of the handle, the upper part of the handle, to get the cut very square. Because if it's not square and it rolls over towards the rod, and if it's not straight, you'll see the cork. Okay, so then I find my mark. There's my mark. Square it off with your square. Here's where you want it to be as square as possible. One straight cut, and we have a nice square cut on both ends. Okay. This stuff is really simple to install. You could do it with a flame. I wouldn't recommend it. It's more difficult to control a flame than it is, the heat gun itself. Okay, so we're going to slip it over the handle, making sure that we have an appropriate amount of. Now, after you do this a couple times, you could probably, take a wild guess at where it needs to be, and that's why I'm able to do this without measuring the exact distance that I need, because I know that this stuff is going to shrink a certain amount of distance, and that's what I need for the ends. So, as you can see, I've left. Let's move it up a little bit more. Move it up a little bit more. Okay, so I've left about that much, covering the end. Now with the heat gun, what I do is you'll see this area right here where the ridge is, where it was folded. Right here. This is where I apply the heat first. Starting on one end, let's turn it up. Slowly working. Now once the ridge is actually flat, move it to the other side. Now you'll be able to see as it shrinks where it is shrinking more in places than others, because you can't ever have the exact amount of heat. So you just have to watch and see how it shrinks. But before it gets tight on there, you want to make sure you adjust it. Slide it up or slide it down, depending on what direction you need to go. And as you can see, it's starting to shrink. We have a little bit of overhang there. So now I'm just going to, after I've flattened out the ridges, I'm just going to apply an even coat of heat along the entire thing until it's completely shrunk as far as it'll go. Slowly rotating the rod. And once I've made several passes, what I'll do is I'll concentrate on the end, on both ends, to make sure we have a good tight wrap on the ends. And I'll do that just by applying heat and rotating the rod. And you can see how it's shrinking down around the cork, getting tight. And on the end, same thing. Apply a little bit of heat, rotating. And it's gonna be hot. It gets so hot you can barely touch it. Then I like to do, whoo, that's hot. Then I like to just squeeze it in around the top and the bottom to make sure the ends are curled properly. And there you go. Now, when you're setting your rod down outside next to the river and you're pounding this down, or it drops or something like that, you have the rubber protecting it on the end. And I think I really liked this wrap better than cutting it off. But because I made the other rod a little differently, I want to have pairs. So I'm going to have two like this and two that are cut off at the butt end. And I'll show you what and I'll show you what that looks like when it's done. Now let's do this portion here. We're going to need some new material. This not only improves the longevity of your rod to make it last longer, it actually makes it more comfortable. I did this to my float fishing rods and my jigging rods, my twitching rods, and man, I tell you, after a day of holding onto that thing, it is a lot better than a regular hard handle from the factory or even a cork handle. Okay, so again, on this one, we want to make sure that we have plenty of overlap, because we not only have to make sure that it covers to the end, we have to make sure that it wraps all the way around to the rod. So we want to come out here like a ½ an inch further than we need to, so we can get that shrink wrap to come around to the rod, so it covers the entire cork area. And you can do that by folding over. Let me try to get there. You can do it by putting it out there and then folding it over to get an estimate of where it needs to go. Okay. And it needs to be like that on both sides. one side more than the other. Then I'll make a mark. I just made a mark with the scissors. Then we're going to one straight cut. Make sure there's no ends hanging off. Okay, so now we have a square cut on both sides. Slip it onto the rod. Could remove these tags first, huh? Okay. All right, let's get these tags off of here. No reason to struggle. I could have put it on the other end, I suppose. Well, no, I couldn't because it wouldn't go over this. Okay, come on. Come on, baby. There we go. Okay, so now we want to make sure that we have enough to cover this portion of the cork, the very top. So the overlap has to be enough to wrap around to the rod or very close to the rod, something like that. Whoops, something like that. And we have to make sure that that's enough on the other side to wrap around the end this way. And it looks fine. Looks fine. So let's heat it up again, starting at the creases. That would, because if you don't want to go this way, it'll twist on you, and it'll be more difficult to keep it straight. Hitting the creases first. One side, the other side. And remember, don't shrink it down too far until you know it's exactly where you want it to go. That way you can still adjust it some. And it looks like it's going to be fine. Rotating the rod. Now when I've got the center shrunk, I'm going to focus on the ends now. One side. I'm going to show you something here that you can't avoid, but I'll show you a trick that helps you get around it a little bit. So this material has a soft side and a machine side, smooth side. You can see this, the pattern in there. Well, they melt at different temperatures and they melt in a different fashion. So one may melt more than another. And you can see right here, simply because the cut was made in the smooth area, it's not shrinking like the rest of the material. And so what you do in a situation like this is when you have it nice and hot, is push it down. Ooh, it's a little hot. Push it down as it cools. Help it cool with a little pressure on it. And as it cools, it'll take the form of the area that you're pushing, the direction to which you're pushing. That's hot. Okay. Okay, so that's that end. That's the other end. This is the front of the handle. And then that is the back. Now you have a rod that's comfortable, has a good grip, won't, you know, you can't, it won't, it's stain resistant. So if you're using eggs or something like that on your handle, it's not gonna stain. They wipe off really easy. It'll make your rods more comfortable, and you'll be able to fish longer and have more fun. I'm gonna do the other one, and I'll be back as soon as I have the one to compare it to, okay? I had to take a break for a second because the smell emanating from the kitchen was just driving me crazy. Smell from what, you say? Oh, look at that. Smoked kokanee. Oh my gosh. This stuff is absolutely awesome. Got this the other day. And man, look at this. Look at this stuff. Oh my goodness. Smoked kokanee. I'll get back to the rod here in a second. Okay, and here is the finished second rod with the butt cap exposed. And you can see if you get it just long enough, it'll wrap perfectly right to the rod. We're pretty darn close to it. Yeah. Okay, so we have all 4 of them done. Let's take a quick peek. As you can see, we have 2 with the ends wrapped all the way around. I think this here adds a little bit more protection, but this is nice also. I actually like them both. So I have 2 rods like that, 2 rods like that. Now I just got to get 2 more reels and I can fish with a 4-pole endorsement. Not kidding. If you have any questions, make a comment. I'll do my best to respond to all comments. I do respond to 99% of the comments that are out there. So yeah, I hope you found this helpful. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so. Tight lines, peace, and I'll see you on the water. Bye now.